Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in to the Week 17 edition of the Sunday Sideline Report here on the SIN YouTube channel. Mike Rifkin and Danny Boy Reginald with me. Dan, good morning, my friend. Hope you had a Merry Christmas. How are you?
It was great. You know, what my Christmas gift was chaos across the NFL.
Oh, we
We
will
got chaos across the NFL, baby.
we will definitely we are 100% going to dive into the chaos. We hope everyone out there had a Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the big man in red got you what you wanted.
Mhm. Yep, chaos. That was mine. You know, if the Jets are not going to make the playoffs, I don't want any of these easy weeks to happen to any of these teams. I want everyone to sweat until the sun don't shine.
That's fair. That's fair.
And by the way, I hope the Bengals make the playoffs because everyone's been saying the Bengals are not going to make the playoffs. There's just no way it's going to happen. There's no way it's going to happen. How could it be possible that the Cincinnati Bengals make the playoffs after this horrific start that they had, despite the fact that their offense hasn't skipped a beat this entire season? But yet
Oh,
here we are. There's a scenario where they could actually make the playoff.
there's a scenario where the Bengals can make the playoffs. There are scenarios where the Indianapolis Colts can make the playoffs. There are scenarios across the board.
Yeah.
So what I'll start this off with is we'll talk scenarios and then we'll go into the games that have already happened this week. And then we will dive into the rest of the week. So let's start with this. We'll start with the AFC. The Chiefs have clinched the 1 seed with their win over the Steelers on Christmas Day. Again, we will dive into the games afterwards. So the Chiefs have clinched the 1 seed. Denver had a chance to get in yesterday with a win over the Bengals, as Dan alluded to. Did
Twice.
not happen.
Twice. They've had chances. They're like,
They
it's
had
one
their
game. One game.
and the Chargers did get in with their thumping of the New England Patriots
Mhm.
and Lad McConkey. Uh, what a guy. NFC playoff picture. The Detroit Lions can clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC with a win tomorrow night over the 49ers, plus a Vikings loss this afternoon to the Green Bay Packers, which won't happen. Sorry, Patches O'Houlihan. Old Ops guys, Philadelphia Eagles clinched the NFC East division today with a win over the Cowboys or a Commanders loss to the Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons clinched the NFC South division tonight with a win and a Bucks loss over the to the Panthers.
The NFC South has been so weird all season. The fact
Yeah,
the Falcons can clinch tonight.
yeah, it's well, it's insane that division. The Rams can win the NFC West.
Hmm.
They won last night, and even though Seattle won on Thursday night game of the year against the Bears, the Rams will clinch with strength of victory over Seattle with wins from three of the following teams: the Vikings, the Bills, the 49ers, the Commanders. Cincinnati already won, so they already need two of these teams, and Cleveland. So with Cincinnati winning, if the two of these other teams win, the Rams win the NFC West. The Washington Commanders clinch a playoff berth tonight with a win over the Falcons or a Buccaneers loss
Mhm.
to the Carolina Panthers. So those are
Specifically a
your
loss or a
clinching
tie.
scenarios.
So I mean, no one's gonna play for a tie, Broncos. Um, but but yeah, no, don't expect ties here. That's not happening. But a loss would definitely get the job done. The Bucks lose. Commanders playoffs.
In year one of the new ownership.
Hmm.
Talking about turning the tide. All right. Dive into the games that have already occurred. We'll start with the Christmas games and work our way forward. The Chiefs obliterated the Steelers by a score of 29 to 10. Patrick Mahomes, 320 yards, 3 touchdowns. Travis Kelce, 84 yards receiving and a touchdown. Russell Wilson, 205 yards and an interception in the loss for Pittsburgh. All right, Dan, what did you take away from this Chiefs Steelers matchup? And with the win, the Chiefs getting the number one seed, the AFC.
I mean, first things first, the Steelers have a lot of issues now. They lost all of a sudden they lost three in a row.
Against
Never a
good
good sign.
teams.
Now, of course, they're in the playoffs, so
Mhm.
they're they're fine in terms of um going to the postseason. They're gonna play after week 18. But now you're seeing the division slip away from them, and they're gonna possibly be in a wild card scenario where they're going to go on the road to a team. And let's be honest, the Steelers, as good as they played, and I think the Steelers are one of the best teams in the NFL, certainly in the AFC, they have a lot of issues on offense, more than I thought they did. And they don't have the big time playmakers uh, to get the job done. Defensively, I think they should be okay, but offensively, they don't have that big time player that could make the big time play to help seal the deal, close things out. And Russ is not going to do everything. He's not that type of quarterback anymore where he's just gonna do everything and carry the team. It's hard for him to do it. And look, for his entire career, it really has been. He's had to rely on so many big time players. This is the first team where he's actually had to literally carry a team. And while I give him a lot of credit for the valiant job he did ever since he took over Justin Fields, I just don't see any big time playmakers, including the quarterback, that can help them. So that's one thing I noticed. For the Chiefs, all of a sudden they're obliterating teams, right? They're obliterating the big time competition. So that's a team you don't want to face in the playoffs. You don't want to see Patrick Mahomes start cooking, and then all of a sudden, oh crap, it's playoff time. They're getting ready to go. They're just getting started. That's never a good sign for a team that's trying to three-peat.
Yeah, to go off the Chiefs first, this is the third straight year where late in the season we
Mm.
are seeing the development of a rookie start to stand out. 2 years ago, it was Isaiah Pacheco.
Yes.
Last year, it was Rashee Rice. This year, it's Xavier Worthy, who had, I think, it was 8 for 70 and a touchdown on Christmas. All of a sudden, this guy's more comfortable in the offense. And you add him in, well, we're going to sprinkle in Hollywood Brown's back. DeAndre Hopkins is here. There's old reliable Travis Kelce with his best game of the year on Christmas Day. And then this Kansas City defense has played so well most of the year. Trent McDuffie won't win Defensive Player of the Year, but he deserves votes because he's been phenomenal. They did all of this damage on Wednesday without Chris Jones, their best player on defense. So I mean, great game for the Chiefs. As for Pittsburgh, I am 133% worried about the Pittsburgh Steelers. in the sense of what you said, they've let the division slip away to a degree. And then they're going to have to win 3 road playoff games. I don't think Russell Wilson can win 3 road playoff games. I don't think this team is good enough to win 3 road playoff games. And here's the problem you have if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin's record is phenomenal.
Mhm.
That he's never had a losing season. But here's the problem. You're too good to be drafted at the top of the draft,
Mhm.
and you're not in my opinion, you're not close enough to being a championship team. So you're stuck in the middle where
Yeah.
you're
So
going to be drafting in the 20s every year.
so Mike Tomlin basically has to do Houdini acts every year
Exactly. And
to to be relevant and be a playoff team, which again is one of the best coaching jobs I've ever seen in my life. And he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about that.
yeah,
But I mean, it stinks for Pittsburgh because for the longest time we've seen them just find ways on defense, and now all of a sudden they can't find a way on defense. They have to have a big explosive offensive game that they don't have when they're facing competition that's not even close to their standard.
and that's the other thing. And I'm happy you brought that up because you brought up earlier also the 3-game losing streak where they played Philadelphia, Baltimore, and now the Chiefs. Better competition. I don't think in any of these 3 games Arthur Smith has called a good game for this offense.
No,
And you people could say, well, George Pickens didn't play in a couple of those games. That's
no.
fine. But you have to ease Russ into games, get Pat Fryermuth involved. I think he's a huge key for their offense. And I would love to see them run Jalen Warren more. Add some physicality to this offense. And those are things I would like for them to do. I don't know if Arthur Smith would plans on it, but if they're going to win on the road in the playoffs, and by all accounts, they're going to have to go on the road. But I'll say this: they're not going to Buffalo and winning,
Yeah.
and I don't think they're going to Baltimore and winning. And after Wednesday, they're not going to KC and winning.
No, no. No one's gonna go to Kansas City and win the AFC. Whoever
I
gets
think
to
there's
Kansas
2
City,
teams that can do it.
you think there's 2 teams that can do it? I don't think there's any team that can do
I
it.
think there's 2 teams. One of them is one you mentioned earlier. I think if Cincinnati gets in, they
Oh,
can do it.
okay.
And the other team almost did it in
Hmm.
week 1. I think Baltimore could do it.
So you think so Joe Burrow we know has beaten the Chiefs. You
Mm-hmm.
know, he can do that for sure. Um my biggest issue is that I think the Chiefs have started to really cook that their home field advantage is going to be way too much
Mm-hmm.
for any team. It's going to be too hostile, and the fact that the Chiefs are all of a sudden like
They're clicking.
gearing up, to me that why do they do this all the time? Why Kansas City? In any case, uh,
They're
uh,
special, man. They're
yeah,
special.
no. Joe Burrow. Okay, I understand where you're going with that. Joe, don't allow Joe
No,
Burrow to be in the playoffs.
let me tell you something. Kansas City, you're not going to play your starters next week against Denver because you don't want Joe Burrow in the
Yeah,
playoffs.
exactly. Come on now.
Oh, all right. So that was Pittsburgh, Kansas City. The other Christmas game, which was also kind of a dud, the Ravens dismantled the Houston Texans 31-2. I'm going to repeat that. 31-2. Yes, the Houston Texans got a safety. Lamar threw for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, 147 yards rushing and a touchdown. Lamar, I believe, also passed Michael Vick in this game most rushing yards all time by a quarterback. And shout out Michael Vick. He just took the Norfolk State head coaching gig.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I don't want to hear uh division champions or whatever the case is for Houston. That's a horrendous team. They are
they've
so
got
inconsistent.
You want to talk about a team that's got problems?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Jesus Christ. You're gonna go to AFC playoff. You're gonna host. You're gonna host a playoff game. And that's what you do against the AFC competition. Like I look at that and I say, "No, no, no. This team stinks." They got so lucky that they're in a crappy division, and both Southern divisions in this entire league have been crappy. They got so lucky being in a crappy division that it to me it just goes to show you,
Oh,
man, you don't have to do much. We got Rifkin back, by the way. Um,
hmm?
you're good. Go ahead.
They've got so many issues. They've got injuries too. They're playing with one healthy
I
receiver,
don't want to
Nico
hear any
Collins, but
injuries.
that offensive line is
They're
atrocious.
putrid, and I don't like the quarterback. I don't like the quarterback. I don't like the coaching. Look, CJ Stroud, I think when it's all said and done, he's gonna have a great career. He's probably gonna go to the Hall of Fame. That's my prediction. Right now, he stinks. He's terrible.
He's had a little bit of a sophomore slump. And early in the year, they were running the ball really effectively with Joe
Yeah.
Mixon. That's kind of gone away too. And then this defense, if you're calling now, listen, I'll give you this: Baltimore's tough to stop, but the way they've been going the past couple of weeks, this defense has not been good, and so they're gonna have to figure that out. And I think maybe we were a year early on the Houston Texans where we said, you know what, maybe they can compete after they'd won a playoff game last year and
Yeah.
how well CJ Stroud played. Things happen. They've regressed a little bit.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
you, I'm not going to pull the plug on the kid's career. I think he's got
yeah.
too much talent.
The playing has regressed, the coaching has regressed. I don't think they're
Yeah,
as good.
D'Amico Ryans has not had a good year either.
Yeah, and look, this is expected with a defensive coach. As great as D'Amico Ryans has been, he's a great
Your
coach.
cousin,
Funny. Yeah, and you do 23 and Me or what's the other one? Um,
Ancestry Report or
Ancestry.
whatever.
Yeah, to check that out. Uh, I mean, look, the bottom line is, I feel like D'Amico, as good of a coach as he is, he's good. He's a good defensive coach. Head coaching it remains to be seen because we right now we've seen 2 years of him as the HC over in Houston, and the results are I it's not something explosive.
Yeah. So Houston, you got problems.
The defense too, by the
Defense
way.
has a lot of issues. Baltimore, listen,
Where do you take it
Lamar
from?
was superb.
Mm-hmm.
Derrick Henry. How about the Raven defense? The job they've done this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know the corners have struggled to a degree, but Zach Orr's done a really nice job there, replacing Mike McDonald, who took the Seahawks coaching gig. Speaking of the Seahawks coaching gig, the Seahawks kept their playoff hopes alive with a 6-3 win over the Chicago Bears.
Another team that freaking stinks.
Greatest game I've ever seen.
Oh my God. Yeah, Gino had 160 yards of passing
Yeah.
and no touchdowns.
There was there was
No
one touchdown
touchdowns.
scored the entire game, and it was
No,
called back because the Bear defender was down by contact. Oh,
no touchdowns.
No touchdowns, all field goals, all the time. Listen, Seattle. I, I'm intrigued by you, Seattle, this offseason
Mhm.
because I'm very intrigued on two guys. What are you going to do with Gino, and what are you going to do with quarterback? And I'm kind of intrigued by DK Metcalf and what happens there. Didn't have a great game, hasn't had the greatest year. Maybe it's Lockett who gets moved and it becomes Metcalf and JSN. I don't know, but something's going to give there in Seattle. And as for the Bears, look, I don't care who the coach is. Next year, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Caleb Williams. He's got to play better. So, anything you want to add there?
Seattle, um, I think it will be very interesting to see what the future holds. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. Does it look good for them? Um, the NFC path is actually not very clear, for a lot of these teams that are bubble teams. Um, so they have issues to do. I think they need a new quarterback. Look, Gino has done an honorable job. And look, at times he's looked great, other times he's looked very poor. But it was enough for the Seahawks to get by. They need a new quarterback. And
Mm.
they don't necessarily have to go the rookie route. They don't. They can
No,
go with a veteran route. And, you
you could
know,
bring in Sam Darnold if you wanted to. If
yeah, that's a good one. I like
that
that.
would be a guy.
Yeah. Um, so I would definitely look at that. Um, yeah, I mean for the first campaign for McDonald over in Seattle. Not great, but they have a winning record. So they're gonna have a winning season. That's a major plus.
that's a big plus.
And they have someone in I mean I call him Jackson Smith Enigma because of
There you
how
go.
because here's the deal. JSN, every time I play this guy, he either does well or he stinks up the joint. And of course, it doesn't help that Geno Smith's a quarterback. But I I don't know what type of game he would get. So Enigma. That's his last name now. Not Njigba. Enigma.
Non Jigba Enigma. All right. On to our three games from yesterday. The Los Angeles Chargers clinched a playoff berth
That was an
with a
easy
40
win.
to 7 demolishment
Easy. Yeah,
of the
way
New
to
England
honor Randy
Patriots.
Moss, Patriots. You get thumped by 33 points.
Justin Herbert, 281 yards and three touchdowns, two of which went to Lad McConkey, the rookie, at 94 yards and two touches. J.K. Dobbins, 19 carries, 76 yards and a touchdown. For New England, Drake May, 12 of 22, 117 yards and a touchdown. I'll say this on New England. They looked so unprepared to
Yeah,
play this game. And that's not what I'm used to seeing from a New England Patriot team.
I would fire Gerard Mayo.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I have a group chat with the Wishbone guys, and Adam says the same thing. And Ian Rappaport reported a couple of weeks ago, barring something massive happening that he doesn't think it happens. Well, losing by 33 at home is pretty massive. So,
Like you can't it's bad.
yeah,
It's bad. The team is a mess. Now they're not a mess at quarterback, but they're a mess. Penalties, defense stinks, offense stinks,
they they
coaching, the
they
coaching
don't
is
have
terrible.
talent.
Like I mean, the clock management, you name it, man, up and down the board. And then the fact, like you said, the team doesn't come prepared for a game. Look, you're still playing. You got nothing to lose, but you're still playing.
Uh, Okay, I'm going to give the listener or viewer in on something. Living in the New York area last week, CBS aired the Bills Patriot game on regular TV. The Patriots looked really good in that game.
Hmm.
They played hard. They wound up losing, but they played hard.
Yeah.
Yesterday was the polar opposite of that. I don't know. They didn't show up. I don't know if they didn't want to show up.
Hmm.
It just the Chargers physically manhandled them
Yeah.
like a Jim Harbaugh team does. And I'm I'm with you that I would fire Mayo. The only question would be, excuse me, who's coming in? Like I've heard people mention, well, Mike Vrabel. Well, does
Hmm.
Mike Vrabel want that gig? Does Mike Vrabel want the Jet gig?
Yes.
Does Mike Vrabel want the
Like,
Ohio State gig if Ryan Day doesn't win the national championship this year?
right. Like,
I don't know.
what does he prefer?
Right? Does he want to rebuild or does he want to go to a team that's a championship contender right away?
Well, I'll tell you this, the Jets would have more talent. So
Yes.
in the Jets, you don't have to do a full rebuild. It's an off-season moves and you're done.
No, I'm talking
Um,
about New England would be a full rebuild.
New England would be a full rebuild. You would have to start from scratch. Yes.
Yeah. The one thing New England has is the quarterback. I think Drake May
Mm.
has proven enough to where he's going to get the ball next year.
Yeah.
You know, like with the Jets, we don't know who the quarterback is next year, whether it's Rodgers or insert quarterback here.
I don't think he wants to come back, by the way.
I, Off the record, if I was you, I wouldn't want him back anyway. That's a whole other conversation. Because to be honest, and I've given you credit on the show, you nailed that one.
Yeah. Well, and I was hoping I was wrong about that. And in some cases, I have been wrong. He's actually had a much better season than a lot of people say. So, I mean,
He's come on the last couple of weeks for
he's
sure.
actually had a much better season this year. So, I can't really fault him for his quarterback play because it's still there. But in terms of team cohesion, confusion. Like it's there's a lot of issues that I even said he can't solve those issues. You can't
Mhm.
just solve those issues with a quarterback.
Yeah.
So, and he hasn't had the greatest season. So, yeah, I was hoping I was wrong about that because I want the Jets to win. But at the end of the day, what can you say? I didn't want him here anyway.
He did. He's telling you the truth. All right. And on to what was the game of the week so far.
Yes.
The Cincinnati Bengals are legitimately a cat because they have 9 lives.
Yeah.
They beat the Broncos 30-24 in overtime. Joe Burrow, 412 yards, 3 touchdowns, another one rushing. T. Higgins, 130 yards and 3 touchdowns. If you started that stack in fantasy, you did great. Talking for myself. On the other side, Bo Nix, 219 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a costly interception.
Yeah.
And Marvin Mims went for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. When Cincinnati missed the field goal in overtime, I'm sitting there going, Denver's going to get in based off of a tie. That's how Denver's going to make the playoffs. And then Bo Nix throws the interception, and I just go, how many lives does Joe Burrow have?
You know, uh, what's so interesting about the Bengals, and I said this before, it's the fact that they have so much talent on this team, but yet they could miss the playoffs. It's gonna be hard for them to make the playoffs. They could miss the playoffs. Like it sucks. It sucks to see this. And they got off to a bad start because their defense is atrocious. And again, the defense was atrocious again. Um, so yeah, it's brutal to see this because what I saw out of Joe Burrow, which I've seen all season, by the way, um, what I saw out of Chase, Higgins, all the big time backs that they have, like I saw an offense that is one of the best in the NFL by by 10 miles. They're up there with a Philadelphia. They're up there with a Baltimore. They're up there with a Buffalo. Like the offense for Cincinnati is very good. But yeah, they're not going to make the playoffs. That's the part that really, really irks me. But they keep their hopes alive. And as for Denver, oh, you don't play for a tie and expect it. Like, what are you doing?
At the end of regulation. And I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, Bo Nix wants to go for two.
Yeah.
You know what?
I would have gone for
I
two.
respect it. I
I would
respect
have
it.
gone for two. I don't know why. Look, even if you lose, okay, well, at least you go for it. And
And
let's say you make
and
it.
you even if you lose, you still control your own destiny.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of the of Denver's situation. You know?
Here, there were two things that were accomplished yesterday by the Bengals. Three, if you want to count staying alive.
Mhm.
Thing number one is they stayed alive. Thing number two is if they get into the playoffs, we need a real conversation here about
Mhm.
Joe Burrow being
Burrow,
in the MVP
MVP
race
comment. I thank you for bringing that up.
because
But
this guy,
yeah.
you you want to talk about an MVP performance. And
Mhm.
listen, I've been on the Josh Allen train all year. I put Josh Allen down in the Blitzer prediction as the guy who would be the MVP. But what Joe Burrow's doing with a lackluster defense, T. Higgins being in and out of the line, he is literally pushing this team on his back and crawling to the finish line. So that's thing number two. Thing number three. Yesterday was a sign to Mike Brown, the owner of the Bengals, and Duke Tobin, who is the GM without the title. You need to get off your ass and pay both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. You pay them both because if you pay them both, they'll both be happy, and the window of the Cincinnati Bengals will remain open for years to come. You gotta pay them both.
Yeah.
And as to your point on Denver, I'm with you. You gotta. I would go for two there as well.
Yeah, I would have gone for two, but then of course it got to overtime, and their strategy changed. They were killing clock like crazy because they knew, well, if we stay tied, we make the playoffs. Don't act like the Broncos weren't playing for the tie.
Yeah, no,
They
no.
were playing for the tie.
When Cade York missed that 33-yard field goal,
Yeah,
they were like, "We are going to play for the tie. We're getting in that way."
get a couple
Credit
of first
Zach
downs.
Taylor for burning his time out.
Yep.
Sean Payton, I don't know what you were doing, but now you got to beat Kansas City next week to get in.
Yeah, and that's it's tough whether or not the starters play.
Well, since the Chiefs have the bye week, my guess would be the starters play probably at least a quarter,
Yeah.
maybe a half, unless you're truly banged up, and then all bets are off. But they play the Chiefs. The Bengals play the Steelers.
Mhm.
So the Bengals, here's how the Bengals get in. They win, Denver loses, and then the Colts and Dolphins have to lose one of their two final games. That is how the Bengals get it.
So both the Colts and the Dolphins have to lose.
They have to lose at least one game
They have to lose
each.
one.
Right.
Okay. And
So for
of
the
course,
Dolphins,
so
that would
so
be
so both of
Cleveland,
them, both the Colts and the Dolphins have to lose one game.
at least one game. So the
That's crazy.
Dolphins play the Browns and the Jets,
Hmm.
and the Colts play the Giants and the Jaguars. I don't think the Colts are losing a game, but Joe Flacco is playing quarterback today for the Indianapolis Colts against the
Yeah.
Giants, and I'm going to dive into the Giants in a minute, in a few minutes. Our last game on Saturday was the Rams winning 13-9 over the Arizona Cardinals. The Rams, like we mentioned before, they get wins from a couple of teams today. They win the NFC West.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray threw for 300 yards, a touchdown, and two picks. Trey McBride found the end zone for the first time. Matthew Stafford threw for 189 yards. 129 of them went to Puka Nacua. And Kyron Williams had a rushing touchdown because Kyron Williams always has a freaking rushing touchdown. That's the way the Rams work.
Yeah.
Um, I'll say this for Arizona. They had a surprising year, in my opinion. They're going to finish either 8-9 or 7-10. But I think you're taking steps. And Kyler Murray proved some things this year. He proved some things to me. I'm not going to deny it. Kyler Murray played very well for the most part this year. He's got to turn down the interceptions, but that's minor. They can run the ball effectively. And if they can get a guy who's a legitimate pass rusher, that would be very beneficial to this defense. And then, flip side, the Rams, I think the Rams are the biggest threat to the Lions in the NFC. Although they need to wake up from this offensive funk they're
Yeah. I mean, Cardinals, I give them a lot of respect. I think it was a nice effort this year. It was um like it was a tough that it was a much tougher NFC than I thought it would be.
in.
So I give them a lot of credit there. I love the quarterback play. Murray going back to what he knows, to the game that he has played, when he was a rookie, right? When he was the first couple of years in the NFL.
Yep.
So that's nice to see. But ultimately, it just wasn't their year. And look, they hung around for as long as they did, and that shocked me. So I'll tell you that much. The Rams, good football over the last month. I have to say, like over the last month, it has been pretty solid football. It has been the greatest. They're not a great team. They're probably not going to win the Super Bowl. But Stafford is on his game. The fact that they have Puka Nacua.
Yep.
That's been huge, bigger than a lot of people think. Play calling's been better from LaFleur and McVay. They've done a pretty nice job there. Ultimately, I think the Rams, again, I'm not expecting a big playoff run, but the fact that they played a lot of good football, getting them to the playoffs, that's a massive win for LA.
They're playing important games late, which is massive, and they've been there. They were
Yeah.
there a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
And instead of it being Cooper Cup and Odell Beckham, it's Cooper Cup and Puka Nacua.
Yeah.
Uh, they have and this defense is so young but it's been so good,
Yeah.
especially up front with Jared Verse and Brady Fisk, and they're playing extremely well too. So,
What would the defense look like post Aaron Donald? You know,
by the way, I'm just spitballing here. What if Aaron Donald was a massive jerk and just signed with the Rams right before the playoffs? He just avoided the 18 game season.
a lot of players would do that though. I mean, he's probably too fat to do it now, but it's like, you know,
Hey, listen, he's Aaron freaking Donald. He can do whatever he wants. He can probably bench press us. Oh, all right. So the Rams, again, they get a couple of wins from teams today. They win the NFC West. All right, we got some action today. We went through the clinching scenarios. I want to talk about the Giants first, and then I'm going to let you go off on the Jets if you'd like, because there's been some Garrett Wilson speculation that's really weird to me.
but just a spoiler, I'm not buying it. But go ahead.
But I'm just going to dive into the Giants first, and then I'll let you go off on the Jets. So the Giants today with a loss. One, they would get the number one overall pick. Yay. The Giants with a loss would be the first team in NFL history to go winless at home
Mm-hmm.
or go 0-9 at home. And I've been the guy who said, I've been team support Dable and Shane, let them figure this thing out. You go winless at home, you don't deserve to come back.
Yeah, it's the bottom line is the team has been a mess all year.
Yeah.
They've been a mess, colossal. Now, look, we're not hearing about it because it's the New York Giants. They never get ridiculed by the media. They never, yeah, we never hear about the dysfunction in the locker room and stuff. It's always all good vibes. All, hey, look, if it's not Daniel Jones, we'll go to Drew Lock or we'll go to Tommy DeVito, and everyone looks nice and pretty until they play a game and it looks actually bad. But really, the reality is that there's a lot of dysfunction within the locker room and in the front office. But of course, they won't let that get out because the Giants have better PR teams than certain other teams in New York. But the reality is this is not good. This has not been a good season. And if I'm the Giants, you have a decision to make here. If you stick with Shane and Dable, which again, I totally understand, you want to give them a chance with their own guys. They're truly their own guys. That's cool. You have to see it through, though. You can't fire them after a year. You gotta see it through.
Here's where the dilemma catches on,
Mm-hmm.
because Dable and Shane are going to be entering their fourth years respectively next year. So either you have two choices. You take a quarterback first overall, and if you do that and you continue to struggle, guess what happens? You can't fire them because of what you just said. You want to see this through, and a quarterback getting new coaches every year doesn't help you. Just doesn't.
Yeah.
The other thing you could do is you sign a veteran quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
Sam Darnold, whoever you want it to be, and you put an expectation on next year. But the expectation cannot be the playoffs. The expectation has to be win 5 or 6 games, be way more competitive than what you are. Because here's the deal, Dan. I'm going to list you 5 teams: the Giants, the Patriots, the Panthers, the Raiders, and who else is really not talented? Whoever you want to put in as 5.
The
Those are
Jaguars.
the Jaguars. Those are probably the 5 least talented teams in football. The New York Giants need to figure out a way to get more talent in.
Yeah.
So that would mean maybe we have to trade the number one overall pick to
Mhm.
get a haul of picks so
Yeah.
we can continue to work. Maybe that is, you know what? Screw it. We have to spend more in free agency, and we may have to overpay guys to bring them in. You've got to figure this thing out. Otherwise, you're going to continually be a laughing stock, and you're going to be continually recycling coaches every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. I think if you bring in a good contingent of, again, no one crazy, B plus wide receivers,
Mm-hmm.
and then bring someone in like Sam Darnold, probably change your offensive coach because he's a disaster. You know,
Yeah.
again, we're not talking um playoff berth. 6 wins. Get to that stopgap until you have a better quarterback class.
Which would be next. 26 is a better
Yeah,
class than that this year
and then you
or
can
next
get
year.
your quarterback because look, it's either Ward or Sanders. Okay,
Right.
cool.
And to be honest, I'm not sold on either one, but
Yeah,
it's a whole nother
yeah,
conversation.
it's not that I'm not sold. I just don't think the Giants understand what their opportunities are in future wise. You know, like I think they can do better.
Let me tell you something. If there's a team, the Raiders, that's going to be desperate enough to get into the quarterback conversation in the draft,
Mhm.
you can hold them up and say, listen, bring it. What do you got? We'll trade down.
Yeah.
We'll trade down. We'll draft the best offensive lineman or whatever. By the way, that's another spot they have to land at some point, the offensive line. But if I'm a Giant fan today and you lose this game, I want to hear from you, Giant fans. I want to know what's your reaction. If they go winless at home, are Dable and Shane back? Are you firing them? And if you were going to fire them, who are you bringing in?
Yeah. And it's one or the other. It can't be, well, we get rid of Shane, but Dable's gone, or vice
Right.
versa. No, they're a
It's
package
both
deal.
or it's none.
They're a package deal. They're either gone or they stay.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm
So
not
that's what.
picking one. I'm not, Dable's been better, much better coaching than team building with Joe Shane. No, they're both gone, or they're both
Yeah. This is so bad where it has to be either they're both guarded, they're both staying. All right. Um, do you want to go off on the Jets
Yeah.
with one
Don't
week
buy
with
anything
2 weeks left?
don't buy anything the media tells you. The media, I'm telling you, the Jets are so bad at, for first of all, we have still haven't heard from Woody Johnson regarding the athletic articles, which is absolutely insane. Like, say something. Say something.
Anything.
No?
Show us you're alive, Woodrow.
Like, come on now. Now look, I don't believe anything Diana Rossini says. Because I think she's doing a hit job on the Jets. This is a massive hit job. Um, but here's the thing. I don't believe a lot of what the media is saying. Now all of a sudden the media is trying to get in between the Jets and Garrett Wilson. All of a sudden Garrett Wilson's not happy, but yet he got 9 targets last week, as if the issue is that he's not getting the ball much. Please give me a break. Didn't he have like 6 receptions for like 90 yards or something? Like,
Yeah.
come on now.
But most of his receptions came in the second half. But yes, you're correct.
But it doesn't matter. He still got enough, right?
I'm
And the
not
Jets
arguing with you.
and the Jets had the lead last week before they lost. So I don't want to hear that crap. No, the media is literally trying to do a massive hit job. They're trying to make Garrett Wilson not feel welcome here, left out. And I'm not for it. I'm not for it. You know, I want Garrett Wilson here. I want him here next year. Um, I'd be okay with Rodgers being here, given the cap hit. I would be okay with him being here. But if the Jets do want to move on, that's what I would prefer. Um, the Jets have a lot of issues, and this Buffalo game that they're in right now, like I don't even care anymore. Get to the end of the season, let's reevaluate. They don't have to do much of a pivot. They can get Kirk Cousins if they want, and I'll be cool with it. They can
That's
keep
true. And then
Tyrod,
we'll probably cut Kirk Cousins.
and I'll be cool with it. Cut Tyrod, I'll be cool with it. What they need to do is they need to either they're going to draft a quarterback. This is not the draft to do it, which is why I would propose this, Ripken. You have Jordan Travis. I know you're not a fan of him. You have Jordan Travis. You have Adrian Martinez on your team. He's on the practice squad. Why not see what these young guys can do under the leadership of an Aaron Rodgers, under a Tyrod? And you bring in your new coaches, whether that's Vrabel, whether that's Rex, whether that's Brian Flores, whether that's Ben Johnson. I don't want him. Um, Aaron Glenn. I don't care. You know, why not have a stopgap quarterback and have these two young guys that are already in your building give it a shot? What do you got to lose? And then let's just say, okay, it doesn't work out. We don't like these guys. Okay. Well, in 2026, you have a big quarterback class.
Yeah.
So that's me. Again, I'll be okay with Rodgers staying here because I get it. The money's kind of weird. It's they're in a bit of a tight spot. It's not as bad as a lot of people think it is, but it's still bad enough where you have decisions to make about Rodgers. And there's a chance that they may keep him. So
I think a lot depends on who the coach is.
yeah, and also what Rodgers really wants to do. Does he want to retire? Does he want to go somewhere else? Like, yeah, there's a lot of issues, but don't
Well,
don't rule out the possibility that he may stay. You know, so
the one issue I'd have with him staying is he he's going to be 41,
yeah, he's a year older.
the year older. I then have to, and listen, I think I'd keep Devontae Adams regardless.
Yes,
But
convince him to stay. Yes,
you're gonna have to convince Adams to stay. It could work. I'm not saying it can't. I just don't know if I want to deal with all the headaches that this year's been again.
well, feel like a lot of the headaches have been because you have crybabies like Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas spilling bullshit to the media. That's what it is.
I
You
would
know?
say it's more Douglas than Salah, just because
Yeah.
I don't know why Salah would openly say, "Oh, Aaron was going to give the game ball to Ulbrich after his first win," and instead Woody's son gave it to Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
Salah has no reason to say that.
Yeah.
Joe Douglas has a reason and a
Yeah.
gripe to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. But but no, look, I think that they're in an interesting spot. Again, I would prefer to move on from Rodgers, but I'd be okay with him staying if in fact that's what they do. Um, but I want fresh new faces, man. And I'm okay with seeing the talent that we got now. And Garrett Wilson needs to stay. He's the best wide receiver we've drafted in years. Let's be real about that.
Since Wayne Corbett,
Okay, sure. Um, I'm telling you,
Hofstra legend Wayne Corbett.
keep Garrett here, keep Devontae here. Um,
Keep Brees here.
I have a lot of issues with Brees. He has not had a good year. But sure, keep Brees here. Why not?
I'm a
and
Brees Hall guy.
get a stopgap quarterback. Whether again, Tyrod, it could be Kirk, it could be um, I don't care who. Bring Gino back for all I care. I don't know. Um, have one of the young guys learn how to play and get things rolling. But again, it's not my decision. It's the decision of the new regime. And there's
Bring
going to be a
back
new.
Zach Wilson.
I mean, with a better offensive coach, why not? You
Let's go.
know.
And just to go back, because we're talking about guys who can play quarterback, Justin Fields is going to be a free agent too,
Hmm.
and that's a guy who's never gotten a real opportunity. So a team like the Jets, if they wanted to pull
Come
away
on
from
now,
Rodgers, or
I
the
take it.
Giants, sign Justin Fields to a 2-year contract.
I think Justin Fields would make more sense for the Giants. That would make a
I do
lot of
too.
that would make a lot of sense.
That would that would be the guy I would target
Mm,
because he's not going to cost you 30 million bucks a
yeah.
year. He may cost you 30 million bucks total.
Yeah, well, we see, yeah, like you said, he still got something to prove. So it's like on a short-term deal, making a minimum wage, perfect.
Oh, yeah, so that's the state of NY football, which is not very good.
No, well, I mean, unless you're at Buffalo Bills, if you count them, but like, you know,
Here's the thing about the Buffalo Bills. I'm talking to all Bills fans. So, Moser, I hope you're listening. I do not care what the Buffalo Bills do until the playoffs.
Mhm.
Don't care. They can win. They could go undefeated in the regular season, and I wouldn't bat an eye because I'm gonna tell you, it don't matter until they beat Mahomes in January.
And I'm with you. And look, I think the Bills, if they want to make the Super Bowl, now's the time
Yeah,
because
this is the year.
they've had so many opportunities to make the Super Bowl, and their window, despite the fact they've had a good year, is still shutting down. It's not opening; it's shutting down.
Yeah, you need to figure that thing out.
Do you do you look at McDermott and say we got to pivot if they don't get it this
It,
time
it
around?
would depend on how they lose and who they lose to.
Okay.
So argument's sake, if they played Kansas City and Kansas City obliterated them, I
Yeah.
may have to sit there and say, you know what? It might be time for a new coach.
I mean, it's been long enough. I mean,
Right. Like the other question is you'd have to bring in someone with a pedigree. Obviously I think for that gig, I think anyone with a pedigree would take that gig. I'm very intrigued on this though. Joe Brady's had a really good year as the offensive coordinator.
yeah,
I kind of wonder if he's a guy who sneaks around to some of these teams with coaching vacancies.
yeah.
How does this offense look if Joe Brady's not running it next year?
Well, I'll raise you a let's say McDermott does get fired and he does have another opportunity to be a head coach. Well, Buffalo job
It's true.
open. Like, and Josh Allen loves him. He loves the system.
Yeah, listen, I think it's a very interesting conversation the Bills may have
Yeah.
if they were to. I'll say this: if they don't get to the AFC Championship game,
Mm.
be a massive failure of a
I,
season.
I would look into it if I'm the Bills. I
Yeah.
know it's probably not a popular opinion in Buffalo. I think they like McDermott. But you got to do something. And I get it. You probably keep him for stability reasons. Look, the team is not terrible. They're always in making the playoffs. Josh Allen's in a good state. But when do you start looking and be like, we got to win? No more of this. Okay, well, we're gonna go to Kansas City, or Kansas City's gonna come to us, and they're gonna beat us, or any team really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
Like when do you start looking at that
no,
possible?
I think you're right. I look at their situation very similar to how I view Philly and Nick Sirianni.
Mhm.
Although Sirianni, I think, is way more of a dope. I do. I'm not going to apologize for that.
Yeah,
I think he's
if the Eagles don't do much in the playoffs, I would fire him right now.
yeah. He by the way, no Jalen Hurts today in
Mhm.
that game against the Cowboys. It'll be Kenny Pickett starting. So
Yeah,
old ops guy, Kenny Pickett versus Cooper Rush. Get your popcorn ready, buddy. Hope Saquon goes for a buck 52 touches. That'll help my fantasy championship out. Uh so yeah, we
excuse me.
all right. So that's Eagles Cow, and then that the two games I really want to hammer home: Packers Vikings, because
Mhm.
both these teams are already in the playoffs. The Vikings can still get the one seed if they win to this week, and then they play Detroit next week. Presumably, that would be the Sunday night game if it means anything. Uh, and Green Bay's playing really well right now.
Mhm.
The, this game could go one of two ways: defensive stalwart, defensive big defense game, or this could be a shootout that no one sees coming. But man, Jordan Love and Sam Darnold. Who had Jordan Love versus Sam Darnold being America's game of the week in week 17 this year?
Nationwide too. This is crazy. I mean, you got to the NFC North is unfair this year, by the way.
It
Unfair.
really is.
But yeah,
You're,
no, this is incredible.
you're gonna get three teams out of the NFC North in the playoffs.
Yeah,
We used to say that about the NFC East. Now it's the NFC North.
yeah.
And then in your neck of the woods, the Commanders win tonight. They're in the
Mhm.
playoffs.
Yeah, people across DC, they're very excited for many reasons. One, DC gets control of the RFK site. So you know what that means for Commander's new home hopes and everything. Now there's like a equal playing field, even though the owner clearly wants to be in DC. So that's one reason to be excited. And then of course, Jaden Daniels, Dan Quinn and company can clinch tonight, baby. Come on now. I would love an actual playoff appearance by the Commanders where it's like exciting. The team is actually good, not that crap we saw 4 years ago where they
Mm-hmm.
were a sub 500 team during the COVID year and it was a disaster. They had Taylor Heineke of all players playing quarterback. Um,
Crack open and a Heineken, Taylor Heineke.
yeah. So, yeah, no, this is a very exciting night if you're in DC. I plan to go somewhere to watch the game. Um, I'm pumped up. Me and Moser, we talk about this all the time. We would definitely, if our teams are not nowhere near the competition, but you have Jaden Daniels and company playing, I'd hop on that bandwagon. Why not? It's
I,
exciting times.
and by the way, you could jump on that bandwagon. One, you live there.
Yeah,
Two, and more importantly, you root for a team in the other conference. So unless the Jets are playing the Commanders, you
exactly.
have no reason to root against the Commanders.
Yeah.
And Jaden Daniels is just so much fun to watch.
Yeah. And he's gonna be a massive player in terms of like, quarterbacks and for years to come. His time is not now, but he's gonna get there much sooner. And again, props to Cliff Kingsbury for the way
Mm-hmm.
he's helped develop this quarterback. Um, Dan Quinn for keeping this team locked and loaded all season. And look, they struggled, which is expected. You're expected to struggle,
Young team.
you know, but they have been ready to go all season long, and they're on the verge of a playoff spot. That's something to be proud of. Uh, I don't want to utter the words "what if," but even if it doesn't go the way that they want to. This is still a very successful season, and I think the Washington Commanders are 3 steps ahead.
They found the head coach.
Yeah.
They found the quarterback. They found the general manager. But the most important thing they found, an owner who's willing to spend to make it
Yes.
better for his team. They really hit the grand slam with all four of those. Now, I'm intrigued to see, but with Kingsbury, the job he's done, does
Yeah.
that land him back in another head coaching gig? I don't know. But
Yeah, a really tough time in Arizona. I mean, that's a good question. Does Kingsbury want to go back to being,
right. That's another question. Like
you know,
there's so many questions that
does he feel comfortable being in this gig right now? You know?
I'll say this. I'm if Dan Quinn gets this team in, I think I'm gonna put Dan Quinn as my coach of the year. I know everyone loves Kevin O'Connell, and the job he's done with Sam Darnold's been amazing. I think I lean Dan Quinn
Yeah.
and the Quindustry.
I mean, I'd be biased to say Dan Quinn, but look at the job he's done.
Right. Like, I think coach of the year this year is going to be a
Yeah.
fascinating conversation. All right. Is there anything else we wanted to touch on? Excuse me.
I do want to send my love, my hearts, and all the good vibes over to the family of Greg Gumbel.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I
Meant to
mean,
do that at the beginning.
you're talking about the soundtrack to our sports broadcasting
Greg
life.
Gumbel.
Greg Gumbel's there, whether it
Yep.
was the Olympics, whether it was the NBA Finals, March Madness, football. I believe the first black man to broadcast a major U.S. sports championship, which is crazy to think about.
Mhm.
A true pioneer in the sports industry um, for African Americans. And he passed away Friday or Thursday, whatever it is.
Uh, Thursday.
And at the he was 78 years old. He had cancer. The poor bastard. Excuse my language. Um, but um, passing away and lived a great life. And man, I am so lucky, Rifkin, that he was part of my soundtrack to my sports life because no matter what big event, Greg Gumbel was there. So
Yep.
sending all the condolences, all the love, all the hearts out there, all the hugs to his family. It's a tough loss for the sports world. I think it's gone. We lost a huge one.
78. And look, he will always be synonymous for me with March Madness because I love the tournament. Um, it's a tough one. I think I hadn't been hit this hard when it became a sports broadcaster more than I thought Vin Scully.
Yeah,
Greg Gumbel hit pretty hard the other day, and I was like, no, no. In a couple of months, he's supposed to be doing the tournament. That's
yeah,
what I want.
yeah. And he skipped last year because of health problems.
Yeah,
And
he skipped last year.
who
So
who who would have thought it was cancer? Damn.
to echo your sentiments, our condolences to the family and his friends. He really was. I think you used the right word, pioneer,
Yeah.
true
Well,
pioneer in
yeah.
broadcasting. And
It's not going to be the same. Yeah, I'll tell you that
no,
much.
no. Rest in peace, Mister Gumble.
Yeah.
That'll do for the week 17 edition of the Sunday Sideline Report here on the SAN YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe, do that stuff here on the YouTube page. Socials, Twitter, S Insanity Real, Facebook, the Sports Insanity Network. website, thesportsinsanitynetwork.com. Right? Blogs, vlogs, planes, trains, and automobiles. If you see Lawrence lying out on the street, give him a high five. If
Hmm.
you see Nate Moser out on the street, maybe call the cops. But for Dan, I'm Mike. We will see you in the year 2025. Everyone enjoy week 17.
Happy New Year, folks. And chaos. This time of year, it's not about the big teams. It's about the chaos. Who's in and who's out. Peace and love.
Get the popcorn ready. All right.